You are up, Commissioner.
All right, Bannock County Commissioners are in session. We're back in budget meetings.
Mr. Chair, I would like to make a motion that we amend our agenda and we start at 2 o'clock instead of 2:30.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there any discussion on that today? Okay, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, with us first thing this morning, we have juvenile programs, juvenile detention and juvenile programs. Matt, so the floor is yours. State your name and just hit, what's that?
18.
Yeah, page 18.
18, 19,
And then just kind of
20.
hit the highlights or anything you feel is critical to your budget this year.
Okay, thank you. Matt Olson, Director of Bannock County Juvenile Justice. I have Todd Mager with me, who's our Chief Juvenile Probation Officer and oversees the Intake and Diversion Unit directly, which includes operations at the village. Appreciate the opportunity to come talk to the Commission about our budget request. Each year we strive to develop and implement a budget that's consistent with what our mission is and why our department exists in the first place, and also based on our core principles. So there's two core principles I want to mention specifically that we really utilize as we put our budget together. The first one is to develop and maintain a highly competent and ethical workforce through continuous training and coaching from supervisors and career development opportunities. And the second one is to use sound fiscal management of the financial resources we receive and to be accountable for our results by evaluating key outcome measures and reporting to the community. So as I go through this budget request, those are the things that we really focus our priorities on. I'll start first with our personnel budget, and starting with 0115, which is a county funded budget. I want to just highlight a few things and then see what questions the Commission may have. In general, what we prioritize this year is that staff members who are not at market, who are eligible for a step increase, would receive a step increase. Ideally, if funding was available, we would request that cost of living increase be given to staff as well. We don't know what that forecast is for sure and what that availability is, but that for us would be a great way to help us achieve and meet our core principles of maintaining staff. And but if that is not available in terms of funding, we would ask that if there's some type of stipend or bonus, or I don't know what we would call it, for those who are at market, so that there would be something, even if it was a one-time type of stipend or longevity bonus. So when we look at 0115, there's a couple of positions that I do need to highlight that are a little bit out of the ordinary in terms of the request. And so the first is, it's line item 106103. This is a probation officer position. Right now, that probation officer is at step 1. That individual would be eligible, if granted, for step 2 at the beginning of the next fiscal year. And then the intention would be that employee would go to post in 2026. And once they complete post in 2026, they will have been here for a year and would be eligible for that following that next step increase as part of that standard operating procedure for employees who complete post. So that's why I have, in that position, requested, we've gone from a current step 1 to a requested step 3. That step 3, we would hope, would kick in sometime in county fiscal year 2026 once post is completed. The other position that's a little bit unique is it's line item 106118. This is a probation officer who has been a probation officer, will meet their 5-year mark as a probation officer in August of 2026. A number of years ago, we came before the Commission and we requested what we call the senior juvenile probation officer position, which included a minimum of 5 years as a probation officer with our department as one of the requirements. In addition, we had other standards we expected them to meet. The Commission at that point in time approved that proposal. Misdemeanor probation was part of that proposal. Those employees that have been here 5 years and met those conditions, they moved up from a grade 10 to a grade 11, and it was a direct, so if they were already at market at 10, they became market at 11. So it was a direct, I'll just say vertical increase. So this, we do have a job description for that senior JPO position, but that job description does not necessarily state that it has to be 5 years, so it's not consistent with what our original proposal was. It does not necessarily have some of the requirements that we had in there in terms of merit-based things that they needed to accomplish, and I think the reason for that was it's hard to maintain those and monitor those, and there's some subjectivity, and so that was part of the concern. I am working with Matthew on developing a more concrete job description for that senior JPO position. The Juvenile Justice Advisory, excuse me, not the Advisory Committee, but the Idaho Association of County Juvenile Justice Administrators Association is worked on a proposal to submit to POST for advanced certification for juvenile probation officers. Most POST disciplines have advanced certifications. Juvenile probation does not. So they've created guidelines to achieve that advanced certification. I think those could be good guidelines for us to make moving from a step one probation officer to a senior PO much more concrete and easy to achieve in terms of measuring or evaluating whether they've met those conditions. So Matthew and I are continuing to work on that, and it's something we'll bring before the commission. But this employee will hit that 5-year mark in August. If the request is approved, they would go to a grade 11 and step in that situation, go from a grade 11, they're currently grade 10, step 3, they go to grade 11, step 4, because they'd get that step increase. The financial impact for this year is only, for 2026, would only be $411 because it would happen so late in the year. The request for the funding for that is down in that 40704, which is a senior probation officer position. And so that's where we've had that line item in the past. If there was a probation officer who hit the 5-year mark and they were eligible, we put the funding in there in case they were able to achieve that mark, and then it would kick in once they hit that 5-year mark and they met those standards. So, Commission, have any questions about that request?
No, I like the progression.
And that's consistent with what we've got when we look a couple pages down. We have a couple senior POs, and it's just consistent with how we've been doing it.
Okay.
So in this 0115 budget, we do have 5 part-time probation, or 5 part-time staff as well, all of which would be eligible for step increases if granted. Most of them are relatively new, but we do have one that's been with us for a while, and she's fallen behind in terms of, there's been years there's been cost of living, but not step increases. But all of those employees have requested a step increase. In addition, under the A budget, do have a retirement payout. There's one employee in this that's eligible for retirement in 2026, so we've been putting that in there because of early retirement for the last 2 or 3 years. We do have a cell phone stipend that the county has granted each year, which has been really helpful for us. Our staff use their phone when they're on call, and they do sign a cell phone stipend agreement, which sets expectations of if they're going to receive this stipend, their availability to take calls and those types of things. And then we also have our on-call stipend, which I can tell you the commission granted to us, I think it was last year, I think it was kind of fiscal year 2025, but has been really a great benefit for our staff, so that the week that they're on call, they get a full shift of pay. And our staff do a lot of after-hours work. They don't just leave the building at 5 o'clock a lot of times, and even when they're not on call, they still get calls after hours because people have their cell phone. And I've appreciated their willingness to respond, but to get reimbursed for that time when they're on call and really can't go places and have to be available, I know is something that we've really appreciated that support. So we have put that in there again for 2026. As we look at our operating budget requests, in 2025 we requested $15,000 for education, and that was for our EPICS training. Todd was able to write a grant and include EPICS training in that grant, and so we were actually able to fund the EPICS training through the grant that Todd had written and received. For 2026, I am asking for $2,500 in that line item, and one of the reasons for that is we have used Title I funds from the school district to help pay for training and education for our staff. We will no longer be able to use that for staff who are not directly associated with the Youth Development Center or Intensive Services Unit. There's been some new restrictions on that funding. So in the past, we could use that funding for staff from the probation unit. We won't be able to do that anymore. So I'm requesting, even though it's $15,000 last year, we hope that's a one-time request. I'm requesting $2,500 in training to offset what funds we used to use that we won't be able to use anymore for our probation unit, even really the village staff. And then we have $815 for a metal detector. We, up at the new intensive services unit in YDC building, that new metal detector has a contract for maintenance similar to those that are here at the courthouse for $815. So that is the county 0115 budget. Any questions about that? 0116 is our JCA budget. That's pretty straightforward. We don't have any B budget in those. We do have 3 employees in there, 2 of which would be eligible for step increases, 1 of which is at market. I did put a retirement payout in this because we have 1 employee in that line item that is eligible for early retirement. Don't know if there's intentions, but we have to be prepared just in case. And so I put that money in the budget in the event there's an early retirement. And then, of course, the cell phone stipend and on-call stipend, very similar numbers to last year. And then 0117, this is our tobacco tax budget. This money comes from the state. Again, fairly straightforward. There's no B budget. We have 4 probation officers in this budget, and 3 of which are at market, and 1 of which would be eligible for a step increase. There's the cell phone stipend for each of those POs, and then the on-call stipend. Any questions? Okay.
Page 92 is Matt's trust, where he actually does most of his operating.
I did forget to mention one thing. It's similar to last year, but in our 0115, we do have a request for, I think it's a little over $13,000 for our part-time position for our truancy court coordinator position. School district pays the other half of that, and then county pays half. And so that was the other request in 0115. So for the Juvenile Workshop Trust, which, as Christy said, most of our operating budget, I'm just going to highlight a few things that are adjustments were maybe a little bit increased from last year. First, our revenues for this are probation fees, diversion fees, and prevention fees. Reimbursements that we may get. So if somebody's ordered to complete a juvenile psychosexual evaluation and we pay for it, they can be ordered to reimburse us, as well as drug test reimbursing and those types of things. So I estimate that we'll have about $50,000 in drug test, excuse me, not drug testing, but probation fees, and some of that would include diversion fees. So we started the year with about $170,000 in that account. So even though we budget, we anticipate revenues of $50,000 to $60,000, we budget over $100,000. We usually stay within our 50 to 60,000. In other words, we rarely spend more than what revenue we bring in. So I want to just highlight computer supplies, which is $42,200. I did increase that to $5,000. Again, the reason is we used to use Title I funds to help pay for computers for some of our staff over in the intensive services unit. We won't be able to use those funds anymore for those types of purchases. So if we needed to purchase some things like computer screens, computers, we needed extra funding in that line item. Operating supplies, I increased that by $10,000 for this year, and part of that is we moved to a new building. There's some expenses there that we may not be aware of, but whether it's increased furniture costs or increased or for decor or those types of things, I put an extra $10,000 in operating supplies to help with that transition. I zeroed some things out in this budget. I'll tell you why in just a minute, but truancy court and youth court, which we've had funding for, we zeroed out. I increased funding for the Youth Development Center, which is 42400 YDC. The reason is that's the programming for the kids there, and so those could be field trips, other things they participate in. Again, Title I funds paid for a lot of that, and there's restrictions on what they're going to pay for. And so I've increased that budget so we can make sure that they're able to participate in those educational activities and fun activities that they do, recreational activities.
All you gotta do is have fishing poles now, and you walk out the back door.
That is
A
nice.
life jacket, right?
Yeah.
And go swimming.
Yes.
Learning 2 different ways.
Those youth plate monies
Oh,
that we
yeah.
can use for some of that money's been building. You haven't used it for a few years.
Well, interesting, we've only ever used that for the River Buddies program, and now that's a 501(c). Todd works closely on that, and we may need to talk about using some of that.
We received significant donations from the fly fishing community and some other nonprofit, or some other organizations to that nonprofit. So we're covered with River Buddies.
Well, keep in mind though, so we've got
License
youth
plates.
plate monies. You can only use it for at-risk youth for activities.
So we could
and-
buy fishing poles for the YDC kids and keep them there.
You could.
Or kayaks.
Yeah, we've talked about kayaks
There
potentially.
could be some options there. We just need to, because the sheriff is officially over those funds, just coordinate with him, but they've always been more than willing to utilize it, and that's all we've used that money for in the past.
Okay, thank you.
So-
We will keep that in mind. Everything else stays pretty similar in terms of the request and in terms of operating budget for the most part. Professional services are interesting. That's the $24,000 that pays for juvenile psychosexual evaluations. It also pays for juvenile sex offender treatment and those types of services. Right now, the Public Defender's Office has been paying for juvenile psychosexuals, their court orders, so that's helped us out financially there, but we need the money there in the event that that doesn't continue. So, one thing I'd like to do different this year is I'd like to transfer $10,000 from the trust to Christie will help me here, but there's an account associated with the village that we would like to transfer $10,000 to as part of the sustainability for the village going forward. And then in that village, in that line item, we have expenses such as pro-social activities, $1,500, truancy court rewards, $400, clothing allowance for staff there, $700, education and training, $5,000, and hostess, like snacks and things for the kids and families, $2,400. So that adds up to $10,000. What I'd like to do going forward is, as those diversion fees and prevention fees are collected, to deposit them in that account so that we can continue to, provide these services that are directly associated with the village from the funds that they collect as part of those diversion or prevention fees. So that could mean, I don't know if we take an extra $10,000 out of here for this year's budget, or next year's budget, so I'd be adding $10,000, but the goal would be to create a separate budget for village expenses for village-specific activities. Does that make sense?
So we would just put it into its own little fund, and then that way it's the village, instead of, like juvenile workshop or something else. It'd just be a different fund.
Okay.
In terms of our capital outlay request, I've got an estimate of $21,796 of furniture and things that would be for the village. I've included,
YDC.
Thank you, for YDC.
We'll take it, but
Where would you put it? There's not even room over there.
we'll figure it out.
Okay.
We're building a second story on the village. No, for YDC, thank you, Todd. So I think it's a conservative estimate, but we do have some things that are really in good shape that we could still take over there that I think would fit in. So we are requesting that $21,796. Road and Bridge had developed a vehicle fleet plan. In that plan, we have 2 vehicles that are scheduled to be, I'll say, retired or auctioned. If approved, what they're recommending is those would be replaced with 2 Chevrolet Trax for a total of $46,000. Right now, from a vehicle standpoint, we're doing okay. We have a lot of older vehicles. Other than the vehicle that was bought out of the grant for the village, our newest vehicle is they're 2014s. But we do have a Mazda that's used at the village that was purchased out of grant. So a lot of our vehicles are older, but they get us around town. And we've been grateful for the vehicles we've been able to use from the commission's office.
So what all do you do with the vehicles?
So mainly, our probation officers, we don't want them in the office. So we want them out going to the schools. They go to meetings, health and welfare. They'll go do home visits, those types of things. And so we've got, as I looked at this, we have 12 full-time employees that'll be using vehicles at various times. Then we have 6 part-time employees that'll be using vehicles at various times. And then we have AmeriCorps staff that may use vehicles from time to time. But, at this point in time, I'd say our numbers of vehicles work out well. I mean, it's rarely a time that we have to go get a vehicle that one's not available. So I think our number is good. If you ask, is this a priority? Well, it fits in with the plan that's developed by Road and Bridge as it relates to the vehicle, but
My question, I guess, basically is an Equinox or a Trax? A Trax is a pretty small vehicle.
yeah.
And so what do they use them for, and how much room do they need? And that's what I'm kind of asking.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're traveling very far, the Trax is not the best vehicle to do that. If you're local, maybe that's fine, but
They're
do we need
primary,
to look at the next step up?
We went and looked at the tracks. I think for local, they're great. We have been using the county fleet vehicles for out-of-county travel, and we haven't run into a situation where one of those is not available. We've also been able to use our Toyota Camry for out-of-state travel. It's a 2014 with 93,000 miles, but it's still doing well. So
The Mazda's available too.
yeah, and the Mazda. So I know the Equinox is more expensive. I think these would be used primarily for getting us around town, potentially short travels, or if somebody's going just themselves. I think the Trax is fine to get us out of town, so I think they're sufficient.
Okay.
So
So the other thing to consider as far as vehicles goes is when YDC goes to the fairgrounds, we're sharing that van between the village and YDC, but we did receive funding to purchase a used van for the village through Department of Juvenile Corrections funding. So there will be a purchase of another
yeah.
van.
So that'll give us, I think, 2 15-passenger vans. And it'll be nice because YDC will be up at the fairgrounds, the village will be here, and they won't have to kind of go
Drive
back and
across
forth
town
to
to
get
borrow
vehicles.
vehicles back and forth.
Looking forward, one thing that would be nice is if we could get a cargo trailer. We do have a small one right now, and that would help transport bikes and those types of things when we go mountain biking with the kids. And then in 2028, we have 6 body armor, the Kevlar vests that will be expiring that we're going to need to replace. So those are some of the capital outlay requests that are down the road.
Do you get the same vests that the sheriff's department gets and/or adult probation get?
I'd have to check with them. I think we go through the same, in the past, we've gone through the same vendor. I'd need to see if they've changed that. My hope is for 2028, if we were to combine our requests with the sheriff's office, there's a grant that law enforcement can get that when I looked into it for probation, we didn't necessarily meet all those conditions. But if we're able to work through the sheriff's office potentially and order those vests through the sheriff's office, we may be able to get a discount based on their ability to get a grant.
Yeah, because they're doing the same thing, so reach out and talk to them about that, see if you can get that.
That would be my hope. Those are just the highlights. So any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Oh, well done.
The only question I have, and it's more about, I know the sheriff's, one of his, I think his anxieties in the future is mental health. Are you, I mean, where are you at on the juvenile side of that? Do you have any issues with, with the new building up there, with security, or with mental health issues that we need to be aware of?
As far as safety concerns within the buildings or
Or just in general?
So I'll respond to your security question first because you asked me to check into that at a previous meeting as it relates to the YDC building. I've talked with Sheriff Manu. They will have a deputy that will be patrolling up at the fairgrounds area from, I think, March or April to about October. So we're going to have almost 6 months of coverage where that deputy can respond if there's an emergency. I talked to Pocatello Police. They have an SRO at Highland. They said if they can get an agreement with the county that they can respond if there's an emergency, they believe that we can come to an agreement on how they would be first to respond if they needed to. So everybody's been great about saying, hey, we want it to be a safe place for kids. We want to do what we can to help provide security and respond when needed. So that's been great. Chubbuck was in the process of trying to get an SRO. They were requested funding for that, and I haven't heard back yet whether or not they've received it. So in terms of mental health, we're very concerned. We're seeing increases in depression, anxiety, and not just in the juvenile population, but in the adult population as well. And when you see that in the adult population, it trickles down to children and to juveniles. I think one of the concerns we have is that we used to have a really strong mental health team through Department of Health and Welfare. That was a regional team here. It was a children's mental health team. They were part of all of our staffings. They were part of really our planning and getting kids connected to resources. When they restructured, that team really doesn't exist anymore to that degree. Their goal was to get those services out into the private sector so that they were accessible through the private sector. So I can tell you that we're feeling the impact of that, and hopefully as the private sector builds up, that'll improve. We still see waiting lists. I think in our community, the village has done an incredible job of being that gatekeeper where people are coming into the village and saying, we need help. And the village has created relationships and connections with providers to expedite getting kids into services. The village has been able to do suicide risk screenings and then do direct admits to BHC. And so I would say that in our community, if there's a crisis or a need for juveniles as it relates to mental health, the village is probably the biggest player in terms of getting people connected or getting them access that don't currently have access or need that support. For kids that are already on probation, I know our staff are really struggling at times to get kids into services that are family-based. We have a couple of programs that are family-based, but we could use more. So.
Okay. On a side note, when I was at the last NACO meeting, I was talking to one of the people at NACO about the village and what they've done, and they would like to spotlight that and put that in one of the NACO news articles. So when Emma gets back, I'll have her reach out to you and work with you on putting something together, because they were very impressed with what you've done and how that's worked, and they wanted to highlight that. So
Yeah, I'll say if a kid needs, with the mental health services, if a kid needs mental health services and comes to the village, we have a working document that we know where there isn't waiting lists and where there are. We've worked out some standing appointment times, right, that we can use on Fridays. With ISU's been so supportive with their new community psychiatric department. We can get psychiatric evaluations done and med management within a week. They allow us time on Fridays. So if a kid comes in on Monday, the longest they have to wait is Friday to get in.
that's cool.
Then we have some other providers that have been very supportive as well. Dr. Gallup's doing psychological evaluations and providing services. Best LLC, we can get families in there without a waiting list as well. And so there's options in the community, but you have to collaborate and know when and where they are and stay on top of that. So I think that mental health services, in my opinion, and I'm on a kind of different side of things from Matt, but I think that with the collaborations we've done, I feel confident we can get kids where they need to be if parents reach out and touch base with us.
Okay. Okay, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. We're going to make a slight adjustment. We're going to have Shan to come up instead of Scott. She's got a conflict, and so she should only take just a minute.
What page is she going to be on?
Page 10. Okay, state your name and
Good morning, Commissioner Shanda Crystal, Chief Procurement Officer. I am very grateful for the adjustment in your schedule. And I just have a few lines to review quick. I'll start with my software support. If you jump down to 42820.
Real quick, that'll be page 11. And again, this is one of those departments that have the divisions.
Okay.
So if you will look at
11,
Oh,
923.
sorry, page, Division 21.
921.
Yeah, is purchasing.
No, it's page 11.
So the software support is Bonfire. My intention is to ask, like I did last year, for them to hold their price for us. We're a small player in their game. but we do utilize their services and have appreciated such. Last year, they were gracious enough to grant us that and kept the price the same. My intention is to request that same for fiscal year 26, but there is a built-in 7% increase, and that's why I put that in there just in case they are unable to hold that price for us. But that is my only line going up. I decreased my travel and education. I had increased it due to a regional conference, which was held in Boise this year, which was just fantastic. It was my first year going to it, but super useful for me. It happens every other year, so you're going to see that kind of wave in my request. But I would like to attend that in future years. It just won't happen in 26. The education is also going down because I have scheduled to take my NIGP CPP exam in August. So cross my fingers, everything goes lovely, and I will not need those funds next year. I have anticipated that drop, so hopefully everything goes my way. We increased the fuel in 25. I've decreased it a little bit. I want to increase my regional presence and get a few of these more smaller counties supported, but not to the tune of where I was at $200. And I purchased a phone last year. I will not need to purchase a phone this year, and so then that's the drop in the cell phone prices. Total decrease for my request for fiscal year 26 is $692.
Way to squeeze every last drop out of it.
Right? That is my hope with
And
my
how many
little tiny,
cents?
right? My little tiny lines. Is there any questions for me?
I don't have any questions.
Well,
Okay. I will make that request of bonfire, and just as soon as I know, I'll touch base with auditing. But they don't renew until October, so it is past the deadline. But that's still my goal there.
okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Christian.
Scott, sir, can we help you, or you just here watching budget hearings?
For appeal for property tax.
That's not today.
That's tomorrow?
Tomorrow?
That's tomorrow.
Yeah. What time are you scheduled?
10 o'clock. You would be correct. It's been nice seeing you.
Now you know where you're gonna sit tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock.
Exactly.
Nice to be correct once in a while.
My apologies. I, honest to God, I thought today was the 19th.
It happens.
And so there it is.
I just didn't want to make you sit
I
any
guess
longer
old
than you had
age
to.
crept up on me faster than I realized.
We'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow then.
Yeah.
Now you
thanks.
gotta work up your anxiety all over again tomorrow.
No, I don't get too anxious.
Okay, thank you.
Page 61.
61. Do you want to have Jake come up here, so
Yeah,
you're
Jake,
not by
come up.
yourself?
Scott, we'll start with your just normal events, budget, the 138, the event center.
Yeah. Yes.
So introduce yourself and then hit your highlights and we'll go from there.
Okay, Scott Crowther, Event Director, Business Manager. My first request, and this is kind of dumb, is can I change my name, my title? Like Event Director, Business Manager doesn't fit. Like Complex Director, General Manager, because General Manager is what the concert folks know the person that runs the venue as, and Complex Director is what I do. I don't know, I thought about that today, but I was like, I'm gonna come up and introduce myself. I don't think it would change anything other than my duties, other than the name.
I'm not making a single comment.
Yeah, you look like a Brian to me. I've always thought Brian.
And I would love changing my name,
Brian.
too. Scott?
Well, we could put this out for a public vote, see what they
We
like to
could.
name you.
We could. Every time I get up there and say Event Director and Business Manager, it doesn't make any sense to me.
That was prior
Yeah.
person's preference.
Like the Complex Director makes sense. General Manager only for the concert side, because that's what they understand. So having it on a business card, it speaks concert language.
So what do you
Yeah.
want?
I don't have a problem with that.
Complex Director? Does that sound okay?
Brian. the
What do you
complex
think?
Director.
Brian?
Slash,
General
Complex
manager.
Director, Mental Health Aficionado.
We could get into that. We can get into mental health
Is
stuff.
it more simple or more complex? That's my problem with the word complex.
Complex. Oh, you're talking complex.
I mean, it's the same
Okay,
spelling,
yeah.
and he's a
Yeah.
complex. Is it
You could
simple or
do,
complex?
you could do Event Center Director, but eventually we're gonna wanna like rebrand it to just be the event complex. So,
I don't
Anyway.
think just go general manager for the whole place.
yeah, whatever works. General Manager works in concerts because that's what they understand. the person at the venue is the general manager. But like, what's that?
Parks and Rec general manager.
Yeah, something. I mean, I think director makes sense, but somewhere.
Well-
I just throw it out there. I don't like the event director or business manager. I don't think that is an appropriate title. I think it's dumb.
Well, take your time, think about it.
That's simple.
Brian, come up with a.
Come, Brian. All right.
The life of Brian.
That's right.
So we'll just kind of, you want me to just go over everything, or you want me to just
And you
do highlights?
listen to the blinker on the Equinox, it sounds like the horses on The Life of Brian.
The life of Brian.
Just hit your highlights.
Highlights. Okay. So as far as a budget, like typically, I don't ask for anything in a budget. I just lean on you guys to do whatever you're going to do. I did get that came up a little bit last year that I wasn't asking for things on my A budget. So one of the issues that we've identified is that we have one CDL driver that makes the same as the guys that don't have a CDL, but he's the only one that can do that work. And so I would actually like to take two of those positions and just give them the increase that we gave. We talked about that a little bit, right, Christy? Is that on here?
That's not on here.
Okay. We talked about doing that a little bit. Christy and I just talked about it, but whatever the increase you guys gave to Road and Bridge for their folks and the landfill.
Which position control numbers? It's the.
So it'd be the 42,250, and I have four, or sorry, is it the
108, no?
108? So like the 108, 101, 108, 102. Even though those aren't necessarily the people in there, but we just have, there's people that are like a lead, or maybe a lead, just somebody that has to have a CDL, because I have to have CDL drivers up there. So, but I don't require it from everybody. But it'd be nice to have that, and then for those people that did get their CDLs or do have their CDLs, they could get compensated equal with other departments in the county.
So, what do you think about doing assistant parks coordinator and then a senior assistant parks coordinator?
That works
The
great.
ones that have a CDL.
Yep.
Okay, you'll need to talk to Matthew
Okay.
about those. But tentatively, will that be okay?
Yeah, I mean, that's a justification.
And like the one guy that has his CDL is a phenomenal worker. I really appreciate him. He doesn't ever ask for anything, and he came and hit me up and said, "Hey, I need more money because I can't do it." He's just worth more anywhere else. So
Well, and
I would love to keep him.
potentially lose him to Road and Bridge if he has a CDL, so.
People are watching.
So this prevents that.
Yeah, he is great. So anyway, and then the only other thing I'm part of the compensation work group. I have been with Jeff and a few other members of the county, and I support the raises that we have or the steps that we have suggested, I guess. But I also just want to throw in a plug for our managers. Last year I lost 2 managers to entry-level positions other places. And those guys are the memory of our institution. I mean, we kind of take for granted that we roll over line level staff, but trying to find where to shut off electrical or shut off plumbing or shut off something when you've got a pipe that's burst, which we've had a lot of that this year, is tough. And when I'm losing my managers because they can make more money going someplace else, it's just, I just want to throw that out there. So last on there is in my extra help line. That's where we put, we've kind of moved things around. Last year we threw in money to where you can hire some temp bodies. The temp folks that we hire do garbage, trash, that kind of stuff, and I usually hire about 5 to 6 of those guys. We work about 32 hours a week, somewhere in that area. I'd like to move $10,000 of that to professional services, and that essentially covers the contract that we did this year for the cleaning company to come in, because they're doing the same thing, so I can hire less people to do that job. So that's my request there. I actually, the office equipment, office supply line, I would like it if we could combine those 2 lines, not increase the lines, but maybe combine those 2 lines just into maybe office supplies or
Which two, 420 and 424?
Let's see, 424 and 42402.
The only reason we don't want to do that is because your 42400 is for your general office.
Mm-hmm.
And we want to keep that a little bit separate from the field. So the operating supplies field is going to be for basically anything that doesn't fall into building grounds and maintenance.
So the office
So-
equipment, not the office supplies and operating supplies. So we have, in our operating supplies, that's where we pull up all of our porta potties out of that, and our porta potty bill.
We're going to pay that out of 42402.
Okay, that's fine.
And then your 42400 is just going to be if you need to buy a desk or a chair or something for the actual office.
Okay, sounds
So
good.
that's why we have those split out. It's consistent with what we do with Road and Bridge, just because the nature of your facility, when people come to you and ask, it doesn't look like the fields are green enough. You can say, well, between all of these lines, that's what we're spending.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's rational. We could talk a little bit more after this and see if you don't agree with me.
I'm
That
okay
was
with
the
that.
concept of how we want to break out office stuff, just in case you have to buy any
Yeah.
of those items.
I just look at where we're spending, and if we're overspending in a line, I want to try to make
We
those
changed that
adjustments.
this year, and
Yeah.
you're going to start spending in 42402.
Okay, sounds good. All right. As far as vehicle repairs maintenance goes, this year we spent a lot of money on tractors. We had a lot of money on tractors, but one of my capital requests is to get a new tractor. So obviously, spent a lot of money on a tractor, but we spend less on maintenance. So the mowers, we spent a ton of money on mowers this year. We got new mowers. We should see our mower maintenance reduced to, oil changes and, just general maintenance rather than full engine repairs. And I'm hoping to do something similar with the tractor.
So did you get the new mowers?
We do, we have all of them. So, and they're ripping. They're fast. So, and they're very nice, yeah. You're welcome to come up and give them a little spin, see how they work.
May take Kip on that.
You should, we will definitely teach you how to not pop wheelies on them, because you will pop those things up fast. Like, you will. Yeah.
Gotta be careful.
Gotta be careful with those ones. All right, I think most of the other stuff in my budget was just moving things around. And then we have an electrical, maintenance electrical. I'd rather just put that into maintenance. I don't have enough money in just electrical issues, but I do need more money in just regular maintenance issues.
This is just kind of cleanup stuff.
Yeah.
Depending on the directors, different directors want different things, and prior directors wanted everything broken out, and then they wanted that special projects line. Just clean it up, easy stuff.
Makes it easier for us to just see where we're at with stuff. And then, let's see, out of the movies in the park line, we have $10,000 in there. We've done a little bit of movies in the park this year. We've had people request specifically to do movies in the park, like we sold that as a Portneuf Medical, and we talked to those guys, want to come and have a movie shown in the amphitheater, so that'll be something that we actually charge them the cost, so we'll pay for it and then we can charge it back. So I talked to Terry, asked her to get a hold of you to figure out how to do that, but so anyway, I'd like to move $3,500 out of that, from that to professional services. That's what we use to pay for our camp host, who again is a huge asset to our venue. So that's really all I have. Most of the stuff in my line is just moving stuff around. Right, we're not really asking for too much. Just moving everything around. If that's okay. You guys have any questions about that one?
Do you want to talk capital really, really quick?
I'd love to. So my capital, my number one was the snowplow. During high school rodeo, one of our tractors, the tractor that we own, the little case tractor that we own, tried to blow up on us. We were able to get that thing to walk through high school rodeo. So But it is, we lease a tractor and we own that tractor. We run 2 tractors all the time. So I would put that tractor as a higher priority than number 2. I think the tractor's number 1. I put on there 80,000 for a used tractor. It depends on what the market looks like, but we definitely need to, in my opinion, we need to pick up another tractor. And then the snow plow, we got the new vehicles, which is great. We traded in all of our old vehicles. All of our old vehicles had the snow plows. So we got Daniel's truck that had a snow plow on it. That had the cracked frame. I think that part of that was because of the plow that they were running, but we've got the same setup, so hopefully it works. Everything's good. But we just need one more plow for another truck, and then we'd be good. So the snow plow is 15,000. Tractor's 80,000. I put on here number 3 is the parking lot resurfacing, and that is just a guess. That's not even a bid. The parking lot was supposed to be resurfaced every 10 years. I think we're over that now from what was originally built. It might have been resurfaced every 8 years. And so we're starting to see cracks through the parking lot. And this is in the wellness complex side. And so I threw 250,000, but I don't know. We haven't got a bid for that. But in addition to that, the walking path is starting to have some substantial failures this year. So we had to have some type of plan to do some work on those things.
In talking with Kyle, they were going to use that stuff where they go along and squirt that stuff all over out in the North County. Have we had the opportunity to look and see what we could do with that parking lot? Because the cracks, we almost need to seal that before we do anything else. It'd be interesting if you could see.
We did talk to those guys a little bit last year when we were doing the speed bumps. We just kind of talked to them a little bit about their equipment's really specialized to roads, and so they didn't think that their equipment. I mean, their equipment technically does the same thing, but at the time they didn't necessarily feel like their equipment would work very well in that system because it's not
a little different
designed
material.
for.
You come in and do crack
Yeah.
seal, and it's a thicker, I mean, almost like a caulking, when it sets in there, and then you come in and put a slurry down that will cover it up. So I did that up at On Semiconductor, and it's a specialized deal. It isn't just coming in and putting road base down.
So we did talk about it. We talked a little bit about doing some path work with them. Our path's about 8 feet wide. Their machine's 10 feet wide. So where we have drainage off the soccer fields, it's cutting down and actually started to cut into the berm that heads down towards the racetrack, which has caused several cave-ins on the trail along the way. So that needs some work done on the racetrack side as well as setting that up on our side. We'll see if we can't do a little bit of work with Road and Bridge to maybe get some patch repair kits so that we can repair some of the potholes. And then we filled in with road base, we filled in some of the cave-ins. But anytime we have the spring runoff or snow or rain, it just comes off those fields and heads right down kind of the same couple paths. So something to, I guess we got to jump on at some point, right? So.
Any questions on that?
I was up there the other night and riding our bikes, and I saw as people were passing, there were a couple of scooters that were cruising, and on one of those washed out spots, they almost took a header down into one of those. So it's something we need to take a look at.
Yeah.
Do we need a culvert or a French drain or something there?
Yeah, we talked a little bit about the culvert. So when I talk about like a memory, right, of the complex, we had a huge washout this year down. We actually noticed it down the racetrack. It took out, I'd bet you, 4 or 5 yards of material from the hill and dumped into the racetrack. And we're trying to figure out. We back traced it from there up and found that there was a 4-inch line that just dead ended underneath the soccer field. Didn't go to anything, nothing, and it had a thrust blocker on it. So I guess when those things power up, they put a piece of concrete on the backside of it. Well, something knocked the concrete over and broke the pipe. And so when our sprinklers run that in the middle of the night, that 4-inch line would kick on, and that cut out. It just cut out. It ran for 2 days before we found it, but it did some significant damage in those 2 days, and that caused damage to the walking path, right? And so right now there's 4 spots along the soccer fields that I've noticed where we have collapse, and we fixed 2 already this year. I think that a lot of it has to do with the fact that we have such a steep drop off going down to the track, the racetrack, and when we burn that for the 4th of July, we burn that every year. Material just starts sloughing off, and when that slides, it slides the whole thing slides down. So I don't know what the best solution is. I don't know if a culvert. Like if we could identify, there's one spot that we know is the low spot in the soccer fields, that makes sense to put a culvert in. But there's 1 out of the 4 that I think makes sense. The rest of them are just popping up. I don't know. It could be the age of the walking path. It's just hit a certain age and it's starting to deteriorate. I don't know. So we address them as we see them. We'll kind of go and address them, but and I don't know if this is the best way to handle it, but we'll run a skid steer over them and cave in the rock and then or cave in the spot because it undercuts, and then we'll fill it with road base.
Walking path's probably never been slurried. It's probably never been.
Mm-hmm.
And you do that, I mean, I just put my asphalt down, and next year I have to put slurry on it. I mean, protect it, and then about every 3 or 4 years.
It gets, and I don't think we've ever had a maintenance for the walking path. And our regular maintenance line, when you think about all the different things we do maintenance on, just on our sprinkling system, we will drop a ton of money on maintenance. You have a pump that goes out, that's $15,000. And so that's really the last few years, a lot of our maintenance stuff has gone towards just trying to keep the yard looking nice.
Okay.
Well, Brian, figure out a way to fix it.
Sorry, Scott.
Done. No. All in your name. Let's do this. Brian Works. I'm writing it down.
I mean, you led with that. You wanted a name. So.
Good.
Just look at some of the plans, because like I say, deferred maintenance isn't a good plan.
No. I mean, honestly, there's so much to do up there. We came in this morning and somebody had driven through a fence of ours last night and ran over a couple trees and blew out a few tires, and it's just hey, it's Wednesday, you know what I mean? It's just Wednesday at the complex. Let's just get her on and get it done. So
We did talk yesterday about putting up a couple of cameras up there under the sheriff's department. I don't know if you
Yeah, I
Yeah.
talked to you about that last night.
figure out maybe where.
We have in our budget, in our camera line that we did the camera project, we have license plate readers that were in there. The issue is just getting them to where they can actually read the license plate. We don't have any power or poles over there. So we dug some holes to try to find sleeves, like irrigation sleeves that we could try to run power through. And that's kind of where we're at, is just we've tried to identify how we can get the poles run.
These cameras that the sheriff's department's looking at are solar powered, so you don't have that issue.
Oh, that's nice.
And again, the other thing is they connect to the system that ties us in regionally, so if somebody's looking for something, it would
That'd be great.
communicate with that, so.
I mean, cameras help out a ton. They do. So,
Do you want to do the Bannock County events real quick?
sure do.
Page 82.
Really, the only thing I have on here is last year you guys moved $5,000 into Downey events. And I don't remember if you moved that in my line or where you moved that to.
It's its own line within the department.
Can we throw that back down to Downey?
The problem is it's not fair related, so we really cannot put it in the fair budget because it's not the week of the fair, which is why we moved it into here.
But any events that happen down there have to have a fair-related purpose. Like, all the events that happen there have to have a
And
fair-related purpose.
that's why we moved it into here.
Yeah.
If they wanted to have like a Halloween event, that's not associated with the fair. So we could either try to put it somewhere else. We've got the fair meeting in a little while, so we can talk to them about that and see what we do.
Put it's a line under the commissioners.
We could do it in county operations.
The,
The problem is it needs to be, and part of the reason we moved it in here is it should be self-sufficient. So if they want to do an event and it's gonna cost $2,000, they need to generate $2,000 worth of income. That was a pro and con of putting it in here. But they've not used it, so it's really not a.
they want to. They want to use it for Halloween.
But that'll be next budget,
Yeah.
so.
So but I think that, yeah,
Well, it created an argument when we went down to fair meeting, basically, about it, and a blame on Scott. So if we put it under the commissioners, they can come talk to us.
Which is county property down there, so.
it's a tough one because like all their staff are fair staff. Their
Their
staff.
county staff under fair budget.
Sure, but like I think their job duties are still fair specific, fair related, right? And so their job duties should help the fair. So when they're running a rodeo down there, like if they run a rodeo, the revenue generated from that should have some tie back into how it makes the fair better, if the way I was reading it was correct. Right, and that's how a lot of other places, I mean, that's how other places do it too. I don't want to get in that discussion.
But the other places are county, they are not county employees, they are
No.
fair employees.
True.
Where
True.
these are county employees.
Yeah.
Real quick, you don't have a budget in here for extra help? You just want to see what the funds look like, or?
No, extra help, well, in my opinion, all the extra help has got to be related to, I don't know. I mean, if we want, I don't, it's just got to be related to a revenue generating event, right? So we did, 6 concerts last year, we're doing 11 this year. The budget's going to change, right? So that's going to be a tough one to say what our extra help budget could look like this year because we're doing more shows. That's I guess the toughest thing about this is they expand and contract, just like our budget authority that we have.
So we just kind of have to over budget for it and know that we can't exceed what revenue comes in.
Right.
And that's kind of how this budget was set
So do we
this year.
Do we have to have a number in there then?
Yeah, if you don't have money in there, you can't spend it.
Yeah.
So we'll come up with a swag in the clerk's recommendation. I think this $5 million for operating is probably too high since we've gone to the contract with Niederlander. So as we work through this, we'll just work with you, Scott, and get a number.
Yeah, we know we're substantially less than that this year, and I think this year is a pretty good representation of what we want to do for future years. I mean, if we threw in there some massive bands, it would change things a lot. But I would think that I think I talked to you guys the other day about our concert buys for this year. We're sitting in that $1.3 million range for concert buys this year. I think that you'd almost want to double that because we have to pay for the expenses. You have to pay for marketing and staffing and security and fire and everything else like that. So if you had that doubled, it would give you a cushion.
And then we just need to juggle up between.
And then we'll start buying for next year soon too, and so there's a little bit of overlap. But a lot of that money is just authority to spend the money. So typically, if hypothetically somebody's a $250,000 concert buy, you don't pay them the first half of that buy, that guarantee until like a month before the show. Some bands want that up front, but usually have to pay half the month before the show, half the day of the show. So just so you know how that money gets spent. So. What else are you thinking?
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank Thank you. Looks good. Any questions, concerns, comments?
So we have an 8-foot path and all their equipment's 10 feet?
Yeah,
There's gotta be some specialized equipment out there.
It is.
That's great, but
and I don't know if we could rent it. I mean, I don't think that, we did, when we did the speed bumps, it actually worked pretty well. Road and Bridge brought out the stuff, they used their equipment, and our staff were the ones that actually molded and laid out the speed bumps and did some of the labor to it. And that's worked pretty well for us. We've had a good relationship with, the folks over at Road and Bridge helping us with projects like that. It's just trying to fit it into their schedule. And so when they're busy doing roads, which is when hot mix comes in, it makes it tough for us to even get their equipment. But if we contract that out, it gets expensive really, really fast.
you may have to just say, fine, we're gonna do so many, half a mile, quarter mile a year over the next, put it on a schedule so that we get that path sealed off
Yeah.
with whatever we can do, whether we can do it or something.
Have we looked for any grants for that? Nancy, have you seen any grants for green belt trails or maintenance or something like that?
Yeah, there's some through Parks and Rec.
Well, the original, we got a grant to actually put in that RV park and some of that pathway. Maybe we need to go back, hit that one back up to, get that sealed.
Well, we just got that email on, they're gonna finish the pathway between us and, what, Pocatello Creek?
Hotel Creek.
And so,
And that's if we could piggyback or go to the same kind of a source to
but
help get that.
maybe make it a 10-foot path. Then we have the equipment
Yeah.
instead of 8. What would be the difference in cost?
It'd be
And we could maintain it on a regular basis.
a guy named Brian could figure that out.
Brian sounds like a handsome fella.
Yeah. Thank you. All right, thanks, guys.
With that,
Yeah, with that. Oh, let's see, where are we at? Dan. Dan, come on up.
Did you find Dan already? What page is he?
13.
Good morning.
Go ahead and state your name and then hit the highlights of what you want to talk about.
Dan Kendall, Facilities Director. I didn't change much on my A and B. We did sell the Lander building, but we're adding the YDC building, so kind of equals out. One of the things I was going to ask for on the contract services is some help with the snowplow for the new road. Just I think it might be more than we can handle, so I was just thinking about hiring someone to help us get that snow off the new parking lot and then possibly have to haul it off once in a while. I don't think we want, we don't have a place to pile it up.
and this is the YDC
So this would be for our new,
for right out here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
we're kind of maxed out. We tried using weed and mosquito a little bit this winter and had a lot of problems with equipment and didn't work out as well as I was hoping. So to be safe, I think we should think about hiring a snow removal company to plow at least that new parking lot and then haul it off, because if we let that pile up there, it's kind of ruin the new slope that we have to that area that's draining so well. If we put a big snow drift in front of the street drains, it's gonna turn into an ice skating rink, I'm thinking. So that was one of the asks on there, but everything else that's different is on my capital outlay, and there's a lot of things on there that I wanted you guys to see and prioritize, and however it works out with your budget. I think all of them are important. But we did get a new maintenance truck, so we need to put a new plow on it. The old one stayed with the old truck, and it's up at the event center, so they can plow the new lot up there. And then we have an old six-wheeler that's not running great. It's had transmission problems every winter, the past 3 winters, so I put that on there, and then maybe include like an enclosure so I'm not freezing my guys out. It's pretty chilly in the morning on a 4-wheeler. The parking lot at the courthouse we've put off for a couple of years, but we're getting to the point where it's coming apart now. You can see the gravel in several areas coming through. I would highly suggest that we totally remove the courthouse parking lot and replace it. We've been using Lander as a little bit of a storage shed, and we use the Sallyport as a storage shed, but we don't have anywhere to put stuff. We try to use Road and Bridge a little bit, but they've had to move stuff around to accommodate different things, the coroner stuff, and anyways, it's been kind of a battle, and when they organize stuff, then we can't get to our stuff any longer. It gets kind of buried. But I think if we had something that we could park a four-wheeler in or put the lawn mowing equipment in, I don't know if we could put it over at the village in the side parking lot, just a shed of some sort would be pretty handy, I think. Right now we run the winter stuff out to Road and Bridge and use the Sallyport for the summer stuff, and then we kind of flip-flop it. But as of right now, we don't have a storage shed. So I put that on there. You guys were just talking about asphalt maintenance. We've been behind on sealing parking lots for probably forever. So before we lose a parking lot, I think it would be important to, I know like the annex actually needs, or not the annex, but the village needs chip sealed rather than just sealed. But trying to stay ahead of that kind of stuff, so I put that on there. The Ag Extension sewer line, we all know the problems up there. I put that on there. We talked about the juvie, the clerk's area in that little project, removing a wall. It's a bigger job than we thought, so I put that on here with the engineering and the labor it would take to remove that wall and make that clerk's area bigger. And then you can talk to the Ag Extension folks. I think they're next, but I put on there that the HVAC to their back two offices, they don't have heating and cooling back there to those back two rooms. We've always just used it for storage. But if we were to get HVAC in those two rooms, it would be a usable office space. And then some security concerns, like when they're up there by themselves, if they could have a camera and that kind of thing, so they know whether or not they want to open the door or not. And then on the rest of it, it's just stuff that doesn't have to be right away, just long-term, a lot of things you can look at, but tough decisions. I want you guys to be the ones to decide. But I wanted you to at least see them and know that they're out there, and it's a lot more than we could do in a year, but there you go.
There you go.
There you go. What do you want to do?
Right.
I'll do whatever you tell me to do, but I wanted you to be aware.
Where are you getting your plow?
Road and Bridge recommended Riverside. They have a different brand. Our plow that we've had, if it gets below a certain temperature, will not work. You actually have to take it back in the Sallyport and warm it up with a heat gun and get the oil flowing again. But the one I guess they have at Riverside has had good luck. So that's where, and they said it was a great price.
Okay. That's a little bit cheaper than the last plow that was pitched.
Mm-hmm.
We want to make sure it's enough and
Yep.
what we need.
Okay, any questions? Additional questions?
Just on your list here,
Yep.
on the back side,
Mm-hmm.
the annex sewer line, you're still running Roto-Rooter over there or somebody every month?
It's not as bad as Ag Extension by any means.
Okay.
We're getting, I just tried to prioritize the best I could. That's a lot for you guys to look at, but definitely something. I've had different opinions, and I'm not sure what the right answer is. I know there's a lot of sewer line that could be removed, but
Well, sewer lines are pretty important.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
I can look
Yep.
at these other things and
Mhm.
they can go another year, but a sewer
Sure.
line, if we're having to clean up after that every month, I don't like it.
yeah,
Well, if we're gonna have to put a new sewer line, you wanna do that before you reseal any parking lots or
Yeah.
whatever they're doing.
Twice.
yeah. That one mainly is an alleyway, but still, same thing. We'd have to, something we have to take care of. I think Ag Extension's to the point where every time they have an event at the fairgrounds, then their line's getting plugged. So that one's by far the bigger problem, but if we had a little more cooperation, I think, from the people in the annex, we probably wouldn't have that big of a problem, but it is what it is.
Okay,
Okay,
thank you, sir.
thank you.
Appreciate you.
Page 16.
Come on up. Go ahead and state your name and then just hit the highlights of your budget and what you're looking for, Nikki.
Nikki Ennis, Ag Extension.
Joanne Agnelli, Ag Extension.
Thanks.
We'll start with the ag budget first.
Okay. So on this one, I think the only thing we kind of looked at is last year we had to put tires on one of the vehicles, and that went over our budget for vehicle repair, and so we needed to up that, I guess, just in case we've got something. I guess we don't know when we need tires I mean, we will know, but I don't know when that's gonna take out, like.
We should have a little bit better with the fleet plan.
Okay.
They're probably monitoring a little bit better.
Okay.
And,
Yeah.
and tracking all of that, so you guys should probably get a little bit better heads up.
Okay,
If
that would be
something like
good.
that's gonna
Yeah.
come up.
Yeah.
Just work with the road and bridge
Okay.
on that.
Let's see. We did talk to Dan about the.
Court's not going well.
We're outside the court.
We talked to him about the plumbing issues, so he's already talked to you guys about that. So hopefully we can get that fixed. Let's see. We did add some money to our budget for our hostess supply. We didn't have that before, and somehow, like, we've done our meetings for training with the office and like some county training, and it's come out of our 4-H money, and so that didn't make sense to us that it was for the whole office training when it wasn't 4-H, so we added that in there to make sure we were, I guess, not taking that money out of our 4-H funds. So we don't have a lot. I guess we're not asking for a lot or big changes or anything to our budget. So I think those were the main things.
You took travel up quite a bit compared to what you've spent.
Oh, where is that? Let's see.
440. So the largest amount you spent one year was 3,000. You've got 9,000 requested, and budget this year is 7,820.
Okay. I don't see
Is there
that
something
on here.
special?
You do have the
About
FCS
midway.
meeting
Oh.
starting in August.
Yeah, well, so we've been down, like Joe said, we've been down an ag, or not an ag, we've been down a faculty member.
Okay.
And so we hired FCS educators, and she'll be starting in August.
Okay,
So that's I'm sure that's why we haven't used
as much?
yeah,
Okay.
definitely, because they'll be using that money now as well.
Okay.
There's a
Yeah.
good chance that they won't max that too, but we're just not sure where it's gonna land, having 3
Okay.
educators next
Yeah.
year.
Versus just the 2 that you
Yeah,
had?
yeah,
Okay.
because
Yeah.
we've been down for a while, I think,
Okay.
on what we've had in the office. So we'll finally have a full office, which will be good.
And then down on the vehicle. So
Yeah.
there's 30,000, I think, if I remember correctly, 30,000 wasn't gonna be enough to get what you needed?
Yeah.
But you're still just rolling that forward, or do you need to add to that dollar amount?
Well, yeah, I guess I wasn't completely sure what we needed to do, because, yeah, we probably need to add to it.
Okay.
Because we do need a new vehicle at some point, like, we're gonna need, the van is getting older, and so.
I think this is
I
the
guess
3rd year too that it's on, so we're not sure where the prices
It's
are
only the
landing
second.
now.
Second?
This is
Okay.
just, this will be the second year. It was just this year and next year.
Okay,
But it's still one of them deals that we now have a person that is over the fleets.
Okay.
And we're, what you want, is good, but what he recommends is what we follow.
Well, and
Okay.
honestly, they requested less than what the fleet plan said last year, or for this year. They were trying to be frugal. So we might want to touch base with Buddy and say.
We just got to talk to Buddy.
Yeah.
Anything with vehicles, we go through Buddy.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I think we just need to ask him what we need to budget for this. Trying to be frugal and not budget
Right.
enough, because then
Yeah.
it just doesn't get spent.
And we're not looking for any bells and whistles on that vehicle.
And that van is used for what again?
It's for, we've been using it for 4-H, for fair, camp.
Do you haul participants or just equipment?
Sometimes participants.
Okay, because I think that was a concern once upon a time.
Well, last time it come before us, it was a 15-passenger van.
Oh,
And we said, no, we're not
No.
doing that.
Yeah, U of I won't let us have
Yeah.
15-passenger vans either.
And so
Like, we
there
can't
was
use that.
misunderstanding on
Yeah.
what they thought was requested, and that's why we, like I said, we got
Yeah.
Buddy, and now we're
Okay.
going through Buddy, and
Yep.
everybody
Okay.
does the
Yep.
same thing.
So I'll make a note
Okay.
and verify with Buddy on what that is.
Okay.
I don't think, he didn't put it on next year's request, because I think he was still under the assumption it would be purchased in '25.
Mm,
So I'll work through that with
Yeah,
him.
we'll check.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just want, basically, I guess, whatever we've had, something similar to that, so.
Okay. Anything else on this budget? Okay. 4-H, do you have it?
Page 50. Man, Caitlin, those page numbers are nice. I like it.
They're not big enough.
Well, it's big enough for some of us.
It's bigger than it was the one time.
I'll
try next time.
No, you're doing wonderful.
I don't think we have really any changes on 4-H. The only thing that I think was possibly entered wrong, we have that contract services 1366, and that's just rolling over from last year, so it shouldn't be bumped up. It was just a mistype.
Okay. Well, and the salary amount for that first position is too low. That's a part-time wage amount, so that will get that adjusted in the
Oh.
clerk's recommendation.
For which one is that?
For that very first salary line
The
item?
service assistant?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah. That,
Oh, that's,
that's gonna be based on part-time.
yeah, because she's full-time. so-
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we need to increase that.
Okay.
So we'll get that adjusted.
Okay. Yeah, I don't have anything else currently. I know our checkbooks were moved over to the county, so that
look-
money should roll over to the next year.
Well, I'll look at those amounts.
Yeah.
Now that we're doing, I just want to make sure that the amounts are appropriate so that you have plenty of budget authority.
Okay,
They should have been before, but it didn't matter as much because I just journal entered them in. Now where you're actually expending the money from this line item, if we put it at 25 and you spend, say, 27, you won't have budget authority to do so. So I'll make sure that that's
Okay.
appropriate. I'll look
Okay.
at both of those. We don't want to short you, is what I'm saying.
yeah, because that money is all brought in from
I
the
mean, there
4-H
was-
program, so.
Yeah, it should be closer to the 47,000 that it was.
It's never been 47,000.
Not the budget, the actual balance in the accounts.
Okay. I'll look at it. We'll make sure it's
Okay.
appropriate.
Okay. Yeah. I think that's it. I don't know. Do you guys have any questions?
I don't have any. Nice for it to be so simple.
Yeah.
I was just saying, we need to look at line 423 and 424. They have the exact same description.
Yeah,
So we
that
need to-
shouldn't.
We
yeah,
need to
they
clarify it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
we'll get that
that
clarified.
423 should be, that's our 4-H money that we bring in to pay our.
So we'll probably
That's
label
U
it.
of I money, so, yeah.
It's not U of I money. It's Bannock
Well-
County money. But we'll label it 4-H, like participant activities or something like that, so that we
Okay.
know what it is.
Yeah, okay.
Anything else?
No.
Commissioner Huff had another meeting he had to go to.
Works for us.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you, guys.
So,
Do a 10-minute break.